Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber for Breakfast. We're now in our 40th episode of 2024. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast. So I'm coming to you today from Panama City, Panama. We're holding our third and final Latin America Fiber Connect regional event for 2024. And the executives here in Panama are highly engaged, and we're just having a very productive event. From here, I'll be heading to Calgary, Alberta for our first Canadian regional event on Tuesday, October 9th. We'll be incredibly excited to be in Canada next week to discuss a very diverse market. 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the U.S. border. So when Canada talks about rural broadband, think brush pilots, access only. Earlier this week, the Fiber Broadband Association, NTCA, and Calix released new research that was conducted by the Center for Rural Innovation that reveals that fiber-fed broadband experiences enabled by local providers in rural communities significantly boost income, entrepreneurship, and business investment. Beyond connectivity, the role of broadband in rural economic growth and resilience compares the economic data from three types of rural communities: the underserved communities, communities with access to basic broadband services, and communities served by small fiber providers offering access to experiences go beyond fast internet. A lot we'll be talking about today. A link to that report is should be in the chat. Congress will be in recess after the election. So late last week, they passed legislation to keep the government funded till December 20th. The Farm Bill, which includes RUS funding, expired, but the programs it covers are funded through the end of the year. So when Congress comes back, they'll need to address the Farm Bill and other government funding. And we'll have Andy Burke, RUS administrator, on Fiber for Breakfast next week. So we'll be definitely talking about that. And last week, NTI published their Internet for All progress report. We now have 49 BEAD approvals to date, with only 7 states left to go. So thank you to Alan Davidson and the NTI for getting all those approvals done. And we'll be glad to get the last 7 under our belt. And so after we'll be in Calgary next week, we'll be in Albuquerque, New Mexico for our tribal broadband event. And then I hope all our pre-member members will be joining us in Isla Morada and the Keys on December 9th and 10th. That will be our premier member meeting. That's kind of our best event of the entire year. That brings us today's Five for Breakfast session with our guest, Alzbeta Fellenbaum from the top industry analyst firm Omdia, discuss her latest research on looking beyond speed, connected home monetization, opportunities, and trends. But before I formally introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from team to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and good morning to everybody who's joined us today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a couple of logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, please keep in mind, all participants are in listen-only mode today. To ask a question, please type it into the question box, which you can find in the upper right corner of your screen. We will have a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's session. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. And you can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate your input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to once again introduce our guest and get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David. Good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, our guests were from the Benton Institute, City of Mesa, NTIA, and Brightspeed to discuss the multi-stakeholder permitting summit we held at Georgetown Law School and the recent report on the findings and recommendations from the summit titled Permitting Success Strategies for ISPs and Local Governments. So if you missed that session, go to our website and watch the replay. Today on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest is Alzbeta Fellenbaum from the top industry firm Omdia, who's going to discuss her latest research looking beyond speed, connected home, monetization, opportunities, and trends. Alzbeta is a principal analyst covering consumer broadband access data and bundling trends. She follows closely and advises on internet service provider consumer broadband strategies and monitors technical and regulatory developments across the industry. Alzbeta was a principal analyst and research manager at IHS Markit and is a member of service provider and platform teams. She joined IHS Markit in 2012 and managed the broadband coverage in Europe project for the European Commission. And before, she was an audience research and market insights coordinator for Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty Prague, my favorite European city, of course. Alzbeta was also a research assistant at the Institute of Sociology of Czech Academy of Sciences. She holds a Master's of Arts in International Relations and American Studies from Charles University in Prague and has studied at the University of Miami and Georgetown University. So Alzbeta, welcome. And for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and I will turn things over to get things started.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you for the detailed introduction and bio. So I think everyone has a good idea of who I am now. But the topic of my today's presentation is looking at the connected home and the monetization opportunities and trends particularly in the North American market. And there is a kind of caveat to it that it's looking beyond speed, and we will learn throughout my presentation why and how. So if we can go to the next slide, please. If we step back slightly and talk about the digital home trends and the consumer broadband trends more in general, we can see that the home still presents a significant revenue opportunity for the North American digital service providers. So including digital gaming, the North American digital home market will be worth $632 billion by 2028, recording a 17% growth in annual revenue since 2023, and which represents a 3% CAGR. Fixed broadband remains the biggest market in this sector and will be worth $128 billion by 2028, growing by 4% CAGR. The next is online video, which will surpass pay TV by 2028 and will be worth $89 billion with a 5-year CAGR of 5%. And lastly, smart home services will grow at the fastest pace at 20% between 2023 and 2028. So if we go to the next slide and dive a little deeper into the fixed consumer broadband market, we can see in the forecast that subscriptions and revenue growth over the 5 years will see quite significant growth, even though the North American market is quite saturated and developed. But we still expect the subscriptions to grow from 144 million in 2023 to 160 million in 2028. Fiber and FWA are going to be the fastest growing access technologies. And we also forecast the residential broadband penetration to reach 97% of North American households. So that's the pure residential penetration of consumer broadband plans taken by homes and residences in the next 5 years, and that's going to be up from 92% over the 5 years. We also see that the average advertised speed that these households will subscribe to will grow from 588 megabits per second in 2023 to 1.4 gigabit in 2028. So considerable growth in speed there. And if we focus on the next slide, specifically on the speeds, we can see that the number of households subscribing to home broadband services with speeds higher than 1 gigabit is growing rapidly in the North American market, from 15 million in 2021 to 53 million in 2024, and then further to 79 million by 2028, when the gigabit households will account for over half of connected households in the region. And we also see increasing number of service providers now offering broadband plans with multiple gigabit and 10 gigabit services, either on the download or symmetrical as well. And this is being still done primarily as a means of differentiation and in the increasingly competitive gigabit market. But this practice, if not done right, can actually harm the market and lead to cannibalization of the high premiums that these multiple and 10 gigabit offers should be associated with. So if service providers are not careful, and they will get dragged into a promotional frenzy that can see them offering premium speeds for only marginal price increases. And that's something that we actually see kind of across the world. And if we go into the next slide, we can see the global trend of a speed versus price downward spiral. So this is our research of looking at 70 countries over the last 5 years, and you can see clearly that service providers have not been able to drive ARPU in line with the speed increases. So on average, the actual global speed offered has increased by more than 950%, but the actual ARPU reduced by 26%. And you can see a case of China, which is a very fast developing market, where speeds have increased by a huge over 4,000%, but ARPU has still fallen by 23%. And even in markets like US and Canada, where broadband ARPU has seen growth over the last 5 years, there's still a disproportionate trend where we can see in the US speeds growing by 500 or over 500%, but ARPU increased by 20%, and Canada speeds increased by nearly 600%, but ARPU rose by 16%. And as I mentioned, this is largely because of the decades long practice of service providers when they focused their marketing on two things, and that's broadband speed and price. And that meant that the market competition increased and battle lines were drawn around offering more and more speed for the same or sometimes even reduced price. So next slide, please. So what can service providers do to break out of this spiral and not get drawn into the promotional frenzy? So we recommend is to focus more on overall quality of service and experience. And we can see from our latest consumer research that we've done in over the summer of this year, we can see that while broadband speed is still important for consumers, consumers in North America value actually more highly reliable and consistent quality connection, which is available to them everywhere in their home by a good Wi-Fi network, and comes with efficient and high quality customer support if things do go wrong. So if service providers can turn their attention to providing and marketing an overall superior quality of broadband service that meets all of these requirements, they may or actually will be able to capture greater market share and also convince many customers to pay more. And the primary place where service providers can do all of this is in the home network. So in the next slide, we can see the home network is actually where the ever increasing number of connected devices, which currently stands at 15 to 17 on average connected devices per household in the US, and which are also using high bandwidth hungry applications that are running concurrently on those devices, and they put the strain on the home network. And if neglected, the home network can become a real pain point, which will not be entirely solved by fiber deployments, because because fiber actually targets bandwidth issues up to the point of the home. So if the home network is not properly managed, it will become the bottleneck and the issue for service providers, because they will still get blamed for services and devices not working properly in the home. So on the next slide, we can see that service providers should pay attention to the network, to the home network, and in order to offer the end-to-end quality of experience solutions, they should not focus just on the hardware, such as offering the latest Wi-Fi 6, now Wi-Fi 7, but also to offer smart management software on top of that that can help them monitor traffic on the network and sometimes even prevent issues or troubleshoot issues before customers even notice them. And if from our research and speaking with some service providers that have actually implemented smart Wi-Fi management platforms, we can see that it can lead, or they've experienced major improvements in operational performance, such as reduction of setup calls by up to 60%, reduction in customer support calls by up to 30%, and fewer engineering visits, which were down by up to 30%, which in turn leads to higher NPS score and can also positively impact the churn reduction by 12 to 30% and also lead to ARPU increase. And what can service providers do in terms of ARPU? So on the next slide, we can see that the quality of experience, focus, and services can also lead or provide more flexibility in driving further incremental revenues. It can provide additional opportunities for service providers to provide better or higher tiering for quality of experience and services, such as providing mesh extenders where relevant and applicable and where it makes sense, but also tech support for network issues and devices in the home. It can be advanced cybersecurity or parental controls, which we already see in the market. And these can be either bundled as a premium package or also offered on a kind of incremental fee basis per additional service or device or application. And as I kind of alluded already, another way, in the next slide, please, another strategy that these can then be further used and monetized is in terms of providing enhanced quality of service and experience, which is customer-centric, which means offering plans and services that are tailored to the specific customer groups based on their specific needs. So rather than just pushing higher and higher speed plans to high-end users, because service providers know that they will pay more for speed because 1,000 is more than 500 and 2 gigabit is more than 1 gigabit. But rather than just focusing on pure speed offering, targeting users based on their user preference, based on what they do, based on their personas, can help as well. So we can talk about offering lower latency for gamers, dedicated Wi-Fi traffic streams for home workers that prioritize their Teams calls when needed. Families will then appreciate parental controls and more of a cybersecurity for their kids. If there's someone who's an online entertainment buff and wants the highest quality of video, that can also be tailored and prioritized. And for social media users, upload speed boosts, for example, is another way of monetizing and offering a kind of value-added service. And we can see in the next slide that some of these service features are already being deployed and introduced. So, as I mentioned, Wi-Fi management, guest access, parental controls are now common features. But you can see kind of how they've evolved over time. There are also new features such as Wi-Fi sensing that are entering the marketplace, and we'll probably see more use of those kind of applications, whether it's for more of a senior citizens or people wanting to keep an eye on their parents or on their kids. On the other hand, there's those use cases for Wi-Fi sensing applications, for example, and cybersecurity, of course. But again, it is important that the offering for these services is tailored and explained to customers in a way that makes sense for their lives, and provides that added value that they will be able to, that they will be willing to pay for, because we see that users are willing to pay more for things that matter to them. So service providers really should tap into this, because with most traditional offers, consumers are now left to choose their broadband service based on speed or technology tiers. Maybe if there's certain entertainment, online video plan offered, but it's not really driven by their needs and wishes. But if this was the case, or more of a case, then customers will feel seen and heard, and they are therefore more likely to choose these services over competitors and stay loyal. And as we see in the chart, also willing to pay more. And I think I will stop there, and we'll see if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
No, it's super interesting. So a number of questions have come in. What about, you didn't really talk a whole lot about AI. AI is, eating the world. How does that what is its place in home networking?
So, well, there are few cases where AI is being deployed. One is in the home network, in the managed Wi-Fi space that's done in the cloud, and AI is overlaid over that. So that is one way. But another way can also, and I think what we'll see more of, will be in terms of the personalization of services. With all of the data that's being gathered about us, service providers kind of within kind of the data privacy concerns reason, can tap into this and really tailor and use it to tailor the services to families, to home workers, based on the need or the personalities. So I think that those are kind of the two main examples of where we see more AI being deployed.
I would think from like optimizing your in-home experience, because when I just moved, I took my Plume pods with me and set them
Yeah.
up, but trying to figure out where your mesh Wi-Fi pods need to be, and optimizing your experience. Either I'm not reading the instructions, or I'm just guessing where these things go and hoping for the
Yeah.
best. Is that, just optimizing location and placement and looking at
Yes,
signal?
definitely. And also in terms of helping engineers to, when they do the setup in the home, they can then, use AI-powered tools and applications to have kind of the list of things that they need to check can maybe done as a one check rather than 20 different options that has to be checked by them. And also in terms of another way, I think can be also used when again, when people call about their service, they have an issue, but then because the AI applied within the customer service portals can then help the people in the customer center support. Then they can drive kind of further monetization and offer additional services. Like they can immediately see, like, okay, well, I see that you have this plan, but there's this offer, and they don't have to scroll through many different offers that are coming to the market or being introduced every week, but it's the AI actually monitors that for them and can offer that for them immediately on an instant. So that's kind of another. But in terms of the network optimization and monitoring and management. That's kind of the use case that we see most of currently.
Yeah, believe me, I hate the customer service chatbots, just to
Oh
exercise
yeah.
frustration. So please do
But
not
I
put it.
think they will get better and better.
Uh, so you have on one hand, you're trying to avoid truck rolls at all costs, right? So being able to deploy service without deploying trucks. But if you have to send someone to the house to set up things, doesn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the idea is to do it once and then not having to do it ever again if things go right. And also, the fact that you can troubleshoot without customers even knowing is a huge help as well. Or on the other hand, if you know that there has been an issue, there has been an outage, then proactively inform through, let's say, Wi-Fi app about this and provide kind of timings for the outage. And those are things that go a long way with consumers.
Well, I have to say, I have Comcast, and I really appreciate. We just had the hurricane, and they're very good at sending text messages saying you have an
Yeah,
outage. We're working on it. Here's the
yeah,
ETA and when it's going to be fixed, and so they are communicating constantly on if your service is up and down, because it's hard to know, is it me? Because you don't have power
exactly.
in your house. Is it me or the whole network, or how widespread is it? So that communication's great. So a lot of people commented on G Fiber that really focus publicly on quality of experience inside the home. Do you see
Mm.
other operators getting on board with that?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think it's, the big operators are working on this kind of increasingly. I think operators in general are realizing that they really need to do something and that the home network is becoming a bottleneck. For we're talking about North American market, Bell in Canada has really been able to drive their ARPU by adopting smart Wi-Fi managed services, and they've been kind of on the forefront of this. But that's not to say that smaller service providers should not engage in this. I think it's really worth spending the time and effort looking into this and seeing how that can be deployed for them, because there's billions of dollars in funding for fiber networks, but what's going to happen after these networks are built? The consumers will have expectations, and they will increasingly be putting the strain on the home network. So if they will be still using their old routers that they have been using for 10 years, then it's not really going to cut. And the benefit of having a fiber connection is not going to be as great as it could be for them.
Exactly. Last question here. So what are some of the tools, methods, approaches that providers should put in place to monitor and maximize quality of experience?
So I think having the kind of the managed smart Wi-Fi platforms is the first step that will allow kind of the visibility of the network and what is happening in the network. I think definitely, in order for that to be successful, the data that operators have has to be kind of organized and categorized in a way that, benefits or makes it easier for the smart Wi-Fi systems to use. So I think that's certainly one aspect where service providers should look into.
Well, certainly, down here in Latin America, neutral networks is gaining a lot of momentum. And so when the providers are all using the same facilities, you have to differentiate on something other than.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Alzbeta, thank you so much and really appreciate all your research and insights on our industry. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I look forward to getting back together next Wednesday with Andy Burke, the USDA RUS administrator, who's going to discuss the USDA Rural Utilities Service bipartisan infrastructure law. And given that the Farm Bill is not passed, we'll ask Andy a little bit about that. So we always love talking with Andy. Alzbeta, thank you again. Thank everyone. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully we'll see you guys in Alberta.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.